That conflicted with what he said during the first trial. He said Roger told him he did it, but today was a different story. Don said his conscience was getting to him. He kept having nightmares about Carrie Kendall. He said he was drugged the night Carrie was murdered and that 25 people were involved in the devil-worshipping ceremony. The judge called a recess, dismissed the jury, and Don Hayes was arrested on charges of perjury. Don's wife, Thelma, then took the stand. She's already been charged with perjury. When the defense showed her a blood-stained blouse, she said it was hers and that it was Carrie Kendall's blood on it. Both Don and Thelma said they were drugged during the ceremony, and it took a session of hypnotism to bring the facts to light.
Perhaps the greatest educational significance of the computer will be its ability to force logic on kids. He's got to express himself clearly to the computer. He's got to say the right thing the right way.
Heavy rain out to the west part of town.
Mother Nature played havoc in El Reno last night. The police station was inundated with calls from distressed residents, people reporting damage and concerned about weather conditions. The foul weather cast a different light on this town of 18,000. The strong winds ripped through the town, leaving a citywide path of scattered destruction. The wind gusts toppled street lights and power lines. City and electrical crews worked throughout the night, repairing what Mother Nature had damaged in only a few minutes. Some residents were left without power, while workmen wrestled with downed lines. The damage struck even the sturdiest structures. The storm took its heaviest toll on trees in the city. Bark was sheared and limbs severed, entire trees uprooted. The roof of the El Reno Junior College Library was ripped back by the winds. The curled rooftop hung over the rain-soaked ceiling. The winds literally blew this home upside down. Two mobile homes in this trailer sales park on the southeast side of El Reno were tossed around by the force of the winds. The winds, although not considered tornadic by weather officials, left a path of obvious destruction. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in El Reno.
Divers resumed the grim search for 12-year-old Wes Bradway. The youngster was canoeing down the rain-swollen North Canadian River with his father, mother, and a family friend when the canoe was swept into a huge log jam.
Watch out.
The parents and friend were rescued yesterday. The 13-year-old and his canoe were never found. Today, demolition experts tried to blow up the log jam in hopes of finding the boy. The first attempt was unsuccessful. The logs were just too big.
Well, it jumped about 6 foot in the air.
That was it.
And some of it come loose, but I didn't see that much of it float down.
How much you need?
You know, the big one that was laying across, it's still there.
Mark it.
Divers had a lot of trouble today with the rapid current and the heavy logs.
It's all hanging on to just, it's so open down there, and the current is so hard and so fast that it's real hard. On the big current, there's going to have to be 2 or 3 guys go down the big one and hold one guy, and the one guy going to have to do the time, because when you let go with your hands to tie, you're gone.
Rescue workers and demolition experts loaded this boat with 25 pounds of high explosives, 3 times more than what was used on the first attempt. There were some concerns about the charge being too large, that the huge explosion would make it difficult to ever find the body. But the divers pushed on up the river, hopeful that this time they would be successful. It was a long wait, about 45 minutes, but at about 3:20, the second charge went off. The huge explosion loosened up the jam. Several logs came floating down the river, but for now, no body was found. Searchers say they'll be out here as long as it takes to complete this grim task. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 along the North Canadian River.
Police believe the two were traveling east on Southwest 29th when the driver lost control of the car and hit the median. The car flipped over and landed 100 feet down the road. The roof of the car collapsed, crushing the women's bodies inside. They died instantly. The victims have been identified as 25-year-old Helen Clark from Watonga, Oklahoma, and 25-year-old Linda Pierce, who had just recently moved to Oklahoma City. Officers searched the car and the area around the car thoroughly, trying to determine what happened and who the two women were.
I got blood right here.
Paycheck stub was in this bag.
A check stub found on the car's floorboard helped to verify one identification already found in a wallet lying near the wreckage. Police then searched the car itself to piece together the details of the accident. The roads were slick last night due to rain, but the investigating officer says the evidence points towards alcohol as the reason for the wreck. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at Southwest 29th in May.
ERA supporters called a news conference at the Capitol, but it was more like a plea. They presented the governor with 25,000 signatures, asking him to call a special session so lawmakers could vote on the issue again. One by one, the supporters personally handed in the petitions representing their particular part of the state. Time is running out for the ERA as the June 30th deadline quickly approaches. These women think Oklahoma could make a big difference. Ruth Adams, the chairman of the Oklahoma ERA Countdown Campaign, said more signatures could have easily been acquired and that recent polls were working in their favor.
We feel confident that the support that is evidenced by polls such as the Harris poll, which I believe is available to the press today, showing that the gain across the country this past 6 months has been significant, and that in fact the opportunity for 2 more states to ratify is very good.
But the governor would offer no guarantee that he would call a special session.
While I accept these petitions, I would just repeat that I remain concerned that since it did not pass in the legislature, unless and until members of the legislature have changed their attitudes, that it's an extremely difficult position for me to call them into special session.
It would take a 2/3 vote of both houses for the lawmakers to call themselves back into special session. It would be much simpler for the governor to do it, much easier. But he says when the lawmakers voted to recess, that was a sign to him that the lawmakers didn't want to vote on the ERA. With this being an election year, that may very well be the case. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
From the outside, this old school building looks deserted and without any signs of life. However, on the inside, the school is full of activity like this. Elderly residents being served a hot meal. This is the last time they will be able to eat together in this building because it has been sold to another organization. The Community Action Program has been lucky enough to find another location for its daily meals. But there's always the uncertainty of not knowing when they'll have to move again.
Well, it concerns me greatly because this is an excellent program for senior citizens. In some cases, it's the only hot meal these people get every day. And it's a program that's well worth the taxpayers' money. And it concerns me greatly on what's going on now on funding and buildings and everything else, because that's what community action has been all about, donations and volunteers. And I am very deeply concerned.
The Head Start program at the center has not been able to find another location to carry on this fall. Workers have been packing up all week and must be out of the center no later than June 15th. CAP officials are looking for a large building to accommodate the children and pass safety standards. They'll welcome any space available if you have it to donate. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City.
The full moon makes some people a little bit weird. At least, that's how the theory goes. And you could expand that theory to include just about any kind of weather. Take all the rain we've been getting lately. Of course, one of the obvious effects is the way it's left some people homeless. The days of cloudy skies and pouring rain has other more subtle effects, too. One psychologist says his business has increased dramatically, and he thinks the weather is to blame.
Oh yes, dramatic increase. In the month of May, we've had a dramatic increase in the number of referrals with depression as the presenting symptoms. And I think that's in part due to the dreariness of the weather and how the people attempt to cope with that and the difficulties that they have and not being able to, get out.
Well, that's his opinion. But a lot of people we talked to this evening happen to share it.
Let's have some sunshine.
No, rain depresses me, and all I can do is sleep, and it's so much easier to cry when it's bad weather. I think rain is real depressing. I hate weather like this.
You can't do anything, you can't go out, and when you do, you wish you hadn't.
It's depressing. It's ugly. I like the sun.
Now, Dr. Quinn says there are certain things you can do to combat depression. One of them is take up a hobby indoors. Another thing good to fight depression in the rain or any other time
is to do something nice for somebody. Now, doing something nice would include telling them it's not going to rain anymore. That'd be nice, but you'd be lying. Ted Brown, Action 4.
This is a sale to end all sales. Hundreds of people came to buy goods that had been stolen, and the thief, one woman, 36-year-old Linda Flaherty. Police recovered the merchandise, and Fraternal Order of Police decided to have a rummage sale since the businesses didn't want the items back. There was something for everyone. Most of the clothes were name brand. Shoppers came to buy as much as they could afford and carry away. What normally costs about $150 could easily be bought for $25. Police are still amazed at the amount of stolen goods.
Amazing. I tell you what, in all my 14 years at the police department, to see all of this stuff, and it's just hard to fathom that one person, one lady, stole everything here. I mean, there's, by the most conservative estimates, there's several $100,000 worth of stuff, upwards, some estimates are even close to $500,000 worth of stuff, retail value, and we just marking it down 10, 20, and 30 cents on a dollar, and to move it.
The FOP expects to make between $20,000 and $50,000 from its big sale. What's left over will be sold Saturday morning. And the money will go to the Make-A-Wish program, sponsored by the FOP, Oklahoma City Fire Department, and the State Highway Patrol. The program grants wishes to terminally or critically ill children. As for the shoplifter, she received a suspended sentence and must seek professional help to fight being a kleptomaniac. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Myriad.
First in Arkansas, radio system. We've installed 5,000 with little or no advertising on the company's part. We now have a backlog of about 4,000 to 5,000 additional requests. Before the year's out, we think we'll have no trouble installing as many as 10,000 of the devices.
How much money could something like this save the average homeowner?
The typical homeowner with central air conditioning is going to save something like $10 to $12 a month. Now, if you have large tonnage, it could amount to more, but I think at a very minimum, a homeowner could expect to save about $10 a month for the 3 peak summer months of June, July, and August.
The ERA forces have been pushing hard lately, trying to get state government to go into special session for one more vote on the ERA before the June 30th deadline. They've been drawing a lot of attention. The Stop ERA forces feel the new show of force is just that, a show. The ERA is no closer to ratification than it was 5 years ago. And in Oklahoma, the Stop ERA organizations haven't rallied since January when the state Senate defeated the latest ratification bid. But they say opposition to the amendment has grown, and they think everyone should just let the ERA die.
I think that after 10 years of debate, time and time again on this question, that in these last few days it's such an emotional issue. The rallies, the chaining to the fences, the starvation diets, it is such an emotional issue. No, I don't believe these are helping with the few days left. In fact, I think that the amendment should be allowed to die.
The recent ERA push hasn't had the desired effect. Senate President York says the ralliers may have hurt their cause instead of helped it, and Governor Nye still says he won't call a special session because he still doesn't think the ERA would pass. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Trying to convince men and women to join the Oklahoma City Police Department has been an uphill battle. While the department does receive a number of applicants interested in police work, not all will become officers. Some won't pass departmental requirements, and others simply become disillusioned about being a police officer. Many people who do eventually make good officers find better jobs and leave the department. Officials admit past recruiting efforts were not the best, and administrators say a recruiting campaign starting next month should make a big difference.
We haven't told our story. We haven't been into groups and had the advertising handouts and all the other things that go along with promoting a good program. We haven't done that. And this next fiscal year, we're going to be out doing that. We're going to be on these college campuses. We're going to be in community meetings. We're going to be recruiting in places where minorities are prevalent. We're going to put a big thrust on minorities this next year.
Chief Gramling says about $45,000 will be spent to persuade people into entering the training academy. Right now there are 33 vacancies in the department, and officials hope to reduce that number within a month. Just to make sure recruiting never slows down, instead of waiting for training classes to start, police officials have decided to accept recruits year-round. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
The Attorney General objected to the use of authorization orders. The documents allow state agencies to buy small items without going through the state's formal competitive bidding procedure. While the state Supreme Court mulls over the legality of authorization orders, the State Public Affairs Board has come up with an alternative procedure. The new authorization for specific purchases would reroute paperwork through the State Central Purchasing Office. The documents would then be passed along to the State Budget Office. The change would add another step to the present procedure and hopefully reduce the chance for dishonesty. It would also increase the amount of paper pushing in state government. The extra paperwork was a concern voiced by representatives from several state agencies.
You're going to substantially increase the amount of paperwork volume and the workload on all the agencies. We processed so far 46,000 claims in the state of Oklahoma. Department of Human Services, I'm sure, is substantially above that. So you're talking about a major increase in physical accounting and paperwork.
Public Affairs Board members promised to keep an open mind about how to handle future purchases.
We're not going to solve all the ills if there are ills. And what we do at our next found meeting, not going to be the set in concrete. If we find something that's not working, what we want to do is to get a good workable program. So let's not put the, let the mule out the barn before we know where we need to open the gate.
State agencies which would be affected by the new purchasing procedure can submit comments or complaints to the State Board of Public Affairs. Then the board will take final action to either amend or adopt the new proposal at its July 6th meeting. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
The doors open at the downtown Central Fire Station to reveal the valuable equipment necessary to fight a fire. A lot of time is spent keeping the engines in shape because they represent a sizable investment. The aerial ladder these men are working on costs about $275,000. It's one of 12 owned by the fire department. The department also owns 30 pumping engines, and they go for about $100,000 each. But now there are meetings between Oklahoma City and departments in other cities in the area, among them Dallas and Tulsa, to discuss setting up a joint purchasing system. This way cities would pool their equipment orders in hopes of getting discounts. And Oklahoma City's fire chief says there's one other advantage.
We believe that the manufacturers would make parts more readily available for us. It would stand to reason that since they have 30 or 40 pieces of the same type of equipment in an area, that they would warehouse and stock more parts for us.
Chief Catlett says he hopes to know by the end of the summer whether the joint purchasing system will go into effect. If it does, both the fire department and Oklahoma City taxpayers should have something to smile about. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the Central Fire Station.
The Oklahoma Blood Institute says we are now about to enter the season when blood is needed most. During the summer, there are more accidents when blood is required immediately, but at the same time, blood donors are scarce. The Institute says all types of blood can be used at some point. There are about 45 people a day that donate blood. Even though that may sound like a lot, that blood can be used on just 2 people. If it only takes 10 minutes to give blood, why are so many people reluctant to donate?
It's a matter of not being educated. They think it's going to hurt. They're afraid of needles. We're not taught at an early age that this is something that is very necessary, that it's painless, that it's a very good thing to do.
Blood is life-saving in a number of ways. The Institute is constantly researching methods to use blood cells and plasma for seriously ill patients. Last year, the Institute had to supply more than 100,000 units of blood to 33 hospitals around Oklahoma, with the unit being slightly less than a pint. Technology has enabled blood banks to become more efficient when it comes to deciding what blood type should go to those in need. Hospitals must have plenty of blood on hand when performing surgery, whether they use the blood or not. And again, surgeries are on the upswing during the summer months. Hospital officials have to make early requests for blood to make sure it will be there when the surgery starts. The Institute says, simply put, those who donate blood save lives. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
War, and the men and women in them, have always been a part of Oklahoma's history. Governor Nye was on hand today to welcome a state conference of the American Legion in Oklahoma City and to dedicate historical state flags. There is a strong commitment in Oklahoma to help the state's veterans. Oklahoma has the finest veterans program in the country, and the state leadership wants to help make it better.
I'm more pleased to be able to do something in appreciation of the veterans. And the legislature, at my request, has appropriated over $7 million to improve every state-owned veterans facility in Oklahoma, and I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud that we are helping through the Department of Health with Agent Orange, and that we're also going to have on the Capitol grounds a memorial for Vietnam veterans.
Part of Nye's plan for these men and their families is a new Veterans Health Center in the northeast part of the state. He hopes that will finish the task of making health care readily available to the people who are a part of Oklahoma's fighting force. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.